Hi, this is Robert Fullerton, CPA. You're going to be watching a video today on the 6 P's of business success. These P's are product, pricing, processes, people, principles, and putting it all together. These are the ingredients to make your business successful and for it to grow from where it is now to where you dream you can take it. Stay tuned to see the 6 P's of business success. Let's start by talking about the first P, which is product. Now, that is the starting position for every successful business. Without a good product or service, you basically have no business. And there are certain attributes of a successful business and a successful product. It all starts with an idea. Every business that you can think of started with an idea. And it is important that if you are starting a business, you must be able to generate an idea that meets a commercial need. So the first criteria is that your business idea must meet a commercial need, and it must do so at an appropriate time. Let me give you an example of this. Let's say 30 years ago, a young man goes to the bank, and he says to the bank manager, I need to borrow some money from you because I want to start a business. And the bank manager says, sure, we'll lend you the money. What is your idea? And the young man says, I want to sell drinking water. Bank manager says, but that makes no sense because in our day, people don't drink water like that. They basically wait until they get home. And now fast forward that to today, to our time, where life has become so hectic on demand. So if you're going to the gym, you're taking a very long drive, you want to have your bottled water. In the earlier day, that idea did not connect with a need because there was no need for it. In our day, the idea is a brilliant idea, and bottled water is a billion-dollar industry throughout the world. So the point I'm making is that whatever business idea you have to make sure that it connects to a commercial need that is relevant and timely, because in business, timing is everything. So that's the first issue, connect to a commercial need. The second thing that your product must do is meet the expectation of your customers. Now let me explain that by an example. Let's say I get up one morning and I go to my kitchen sink and I turn on the tap and there is nothing, there is no water. So I go to another tap in the house and I turn it on, and sure enough, there is water flowing through the tap. So water is coming to the house. It's just that the kitchen sink is not functioning properly. So what do I need? I need a plumber, a guy who can come and fix that tap for me. So I call a plumber, he comes to the house, he fixes the tap, I pay him his money, and he leaves. So my need was met. Before the plumber came, there was no water. When he leaves, there is water in the tap. But when the plumber leaves, I am unhappy. I feel a sense of annoyance. There is something that is missing. And I'm saying to myself, I don't think I like this guy. I don't think that I would ever invite him to come to my home again to do work for me. So what went wrong? Well, the plumber and I agreed that he would come to my home for 9 o'clock in the morning. And then he turns up. I take time off from work because I'm an hourly paid guy. I work at some factory or wherever, and I take time off from work to wait for the plumber. He does not call, and he arrives at my home at 10 o'clock. And what he says to me is something like, well, wasn't here on time because my worker did not come out to work, or my van would not start, or something like that. And I'm saying to myself, I don't care. I was here since 9 and you are here at 10, so I have just wasted an entire hour of my time. So that's the first thing that has me upset. Then the second thing is that he walks across my carpet with dirty shoes and he goes into the kitchen. Clearly he was doing some job on the outside of a house before he came to me, and his shoes are dirty, and he doesn't seem to realize that he's giving me the impression that he does not care about my carpet. And then when he's done fixing the sink, he leaves all of his plumber's debris, pieces of pipe and pieces of tubing all over the kitchen floor for me to clean up after him. Now, what went wrong there? The thing that happened there is that while he met my need in that he fixed the tap, he did not meet my expectations because he was not a professional plumber. And as business owners, we have to understand that there is a difference between needs, the need of the customer, and the expectations. Expectations are things that if we do well, the customer is not going to notice, probably not going to realize that we've done this well. It is when we don't do it well that the customer gets upset. So if that plumber came to my house at 9 o'clock at the appointed time, I was not going to throw him a party and congratulate him. I would expect him to be on time. It is when he got there late and he gave me an excuse rather than an apology, that's what got me upset. So we as business owners and entrepreneurs have to realize that our product or our service, for us to be successful and for us to build a good business, we have to meet the needs and the expectations of our customers. If we don't do that, then they are going to go elsewhere. They're going to have buyer's remorse, meaning that, like me, I bought the guy's service, and after he left, I'm sorry, I'm upset, I'm disturbed. And they are going to either return the product if they can, or never call you again if you provide a service. So it's very important that we meet the needs and the expectations of our customers. And the reason, there's a very, very critical aspect of this. As a small business owner, you want your business to grow and expand. Your business is not going to grow and expand unless you can convert a sale into a customer and a customer into a referral. That is how all small businesses grow. So I have some homework for you. What I would suggest you do, and this is something that all large businesses, they do, and frequently so, what you do is you make a list. You think of your product or your service, and then you make a list of the needs that you perceive your product is meant to meet, and then you make another list of the expectations, the additional things that you must do well to delight your customers. Make those two lists. And then you take your product or service and you line that up, what it does and what it does not do, line that up against the list of needs and expectations. And it is useful if you can see this through the eyes of one of your existing customers. Take the list to him or her, if he or she will help you, and go through and say, am I meeting all of are these the needs, first of all, that you need met? And are these the expectations? And am I meeting them? And that's why large businesses spend lots of money on doing surveys. They survey their customers very regularly to make sure that the customer need and expectation has not drifted a little bit to the left, and they are going straight down the road and missing completely what they're supposed to be doing to delight their customers. So the first aspect of a successful business is a successful product. That's the first P, and I encourage you to invest time and effort to study your product, to get into the mind of your customer, and to ensure that you are meeting both needs and expectations. If you don't do that, your business will not succeed, you will not get referrals. If you can do that successfully, then your business will take off. And that is one of the biggest secrets to being successful. So we've dealt with the first P, which is product. Let us move on now to the second P, which is price. Pricing is one of the most critical functions of every successful business. And there are two aspects to pricing. The first question that we need to ask ourselves is whether our pricing is competitive. So if you're selling a product and the market price of that product is $1, so that's what consumers normally pay for that product, and you sell your product for $1.50, you may get some sales and you may make more return on the few sales that you get. But at the end of the day, your business will not grow and expand because you have priced yourself out of the market. On the other hand, if the price that people pay for that product is $1 and you sell it at 75 cents, you may get a whole lot of business. You may do better than everyone else. Your sales will be through the roof, but the margins that you get on your sale will be so small that you will do a lot of volume but very little profit. So it's very important in building a successful business that you understand that your pricing must be competitive. It must bear relevance to the market. And the other important thing is that it must cover all of your costs. So to illustrate that, let's talk about how we bake a cake. I'm going to give you an example using baking a cake as a platform to illustrate how to set your prices. All right, so this is my recipe for a fantastic cake. The ingredients are 2 pounds of flour, and those 2 pounds of flour cost $10. We need 5 pounds of sugar, and that 5 pounds of sugar costs another $5, and we need 2 sticks of butter. So the total cost of all of the ingredients, my list of ingredients, is $20. Each cake that I make costs $20. And each cake that I sell, I can make $25 per cake. So it costs me $20, and the revenue I generate is $25 per cake, which means I have a margin of $5 a cake. Now, that's maybe quite good because that's a fairly healthy margin to be making on cakes. So if I make 1 cake, I make $5. But if I make 100 cakes, I make $500. If I make 1,000 cakes, I make $5,000. Now, that's how people start thinking about starting a business. If I can do this once, I make X. And if I can repeat the process, I make a lot more money. But the question I have to ask you is, I understand the cost of your ingredients, but where did you bake your cake? What oven did you use? Well, I used Mom's oven. All right? And what utensils did you use? I used Mom's utensils. What gas utilities did you use in the environment? I use Mom's. What car did you use to deliver the cake? I use Mom's. So there is an element of the cost of that cake that is not reflected in the direct inputs, and that's called the overhead expenses. And the problem we have as people who start businesses in our homes is very often we forget to take into account the overheads that we are incurring but not even recognizing as we do this. And then we say to ourselves, listen, I want to start a business. Mom says, I'm not going to allow you can bake 1 cake, but I'm not going to allow you to bake 100 cakes in my kitchen. So if you want to start a business, you need to go out. You need to get a place and rent and start your business. And it is then that we realize that there are other costs to incur. So let's assume that Mom puts us out of her kitchen and we want to launch into this new venture of baking cakes. And we go and we rent a bakery or we rent a shop, we hire staff, we buy utensils, we have to pay for utilities and all of that stuff. And let's say that comes up to $5,000 a month. So we are now moving from a hobby to a business. We're now moving from the home to rented premises. And the cost of those premises are $5,000 per month. My question to you is, how many cakes must you make and sell before you will generate any profit? Well, the answer is 1,000. Because each cake generates $5 revenue for you. And if you have to cover $5,000 in other costs, then you need 1,000 cakes. And that's the calculation. That's called a break-even calculation. And that's the calculation that many business owners do not do before they launch into massive operations. They do not take the time to figure out at what point in time does this business break even. Let me give you an example of how that works. So you start in the rented facility for the first month, and you did reasonably well. You baked and sold 600 cakes, but you are well short of the 1,000. So the revenue you got, the contribution you got is $3,000, but you have $5,000 to pay. So where is that extra $2,000 going to come from? You're going to have to dip your hands into your pockets, into your capital, to be able to sustain the business during that period of time that it is not generating the level of revenue or the level of sales to break even. And that is where businesses fail. That's probably one of the most frequent causes of business failure. The owners did not project far enough into the future to the point where the business became sustainable. So, the second P, and probably one of the most important P's in the entire process, is your pricing. Your price must cover all of your expenses, including your direct and indirect costs, and it must be competitive. If you can do that, then your chances of success are so much better. If you fail to do that, your business is going to run into cash flow problems in a very short space of time. And it's important for you to understand that, because after you invest your life savings in this business, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you think things are going well, you're just falling short of breaking even, and after 2-3 months, you run out of capital and your business goes into bankruptcy. If I have seen that 1,000 times, I've seen it more than that. It's just so regular, so frequent an occurrence. It accounts for one of the businesses have a very high failure rate. According to the US Small Business Administration, more than 50% of all businesses fail in the first 5 years. So half of all the businesses that start fail. And that issue of break-even is probably the number one reason for the business to fail. So the second P that I want to address you to is price. First P is product, then the second P is price. The third P is process. And to illustrate process, I'm going to take you back to your days of biology. And we're going to look at the human body as a process and compare that to how a business functions. Now, in the human body, there are a number of organs which have functions. So the functions are here, and the functions are driven by processes. And let me explain how that works. The heart is an organ that has a function. The function of the heart is to pump blood throughout the system, throughout the body. The process by which it does that is the heart is a muscle that expands and contracts, and as it pumps in a rhythmic way, the blood is forced through the veins and through the arteries. So the process is the pumping process, and the function is to distribute the blood. The lungs, the function of the lungs is to take in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. And the way it does that, the process is through our breathing pattern. Now, we breathe. That process is so efficient that we are not even aware that we're breathing sometimes, because our lungs are so in sync, and that process is so well fine-tuned that we do it automatically. So let's now transfer that thinking to the business environment. Every business, whether small or large, is made up of a number of functions and processes. Small businesses and owner-managed businesses have simple functions. Large businesses have more complex functions. So let's look at a large business. When the business gets so big and complicated that the owners can no longer do everything, they hire experts to take responsibility for specific functions. So you're going to have a director marketing who is responsible for the marketing function. You're going to have a chief financial officer who's responsible for the finance and accounting function. You may have an operations manager and so on. So there are a number of functions that are taking place in this organization. And just like the heart and just like the body, these functions must be efficient. The processes must be efficient, the processes must be consistent, and there must be no failing in those processes. So you have a marketing department in a company and a marketing director, and he or she goes out there and is able to generate a whole lot of sales. So the company is doing well in getting contracts and dealing with customers and so on. But the manufacturing process is not efficient. So the manufacturing process is not meeting the sales demand. What happens then is the entire company shuts down. Just as in the body, if there is an issue with the heart, the entire body function shuts down. If there's an issue with the lungs, the entire function shuts down. So in an organization, if one of these processes is not efficient and is not in sync with everything else, then the entire organization suffers. And that's one of the things that business owners and people who are involved in the business strategy need to be constantly looking at, even as small business owners that are owner-managed. We have to be looking at all of the processes that are involved in making our product and getting it to the customer, and make sure that it is first lean. And by lean, I mean that there is no waste, because waste uses up money. It consumes money. We lose money when things are not efficient. So you may be making cakes and half of the flour is falling onto the ground. When you sweep that up at the end of the day, that might be a pound of flour. That might be $5 lost. Over a year, that's a couple $1,000s. And that's how inefficiency in functions costs the company money. So the fourth P rather, or is it the third P? Yes, the third P is processes. Your processes must have no bottlenecks, meaning if there's a consistent flow, there must be no point in the process where things grind to a halt, because everyone, it's going to affect everyone. So we have to get, whether you are a multi-million-dollar business or you are a small mom-and-pop operation, you need to take a look at your processes and ensure that they're efficient, that there is no waste, and that there are no bottlenecks to stop the flow of money coming into your business and going out of your business.
Dyslexic, and so that forced me to find good people to fill in my blanks, and learn, being willing to delegate is such an important thing in life, and being a good delegator, finding people who are better than you to do the things you're not good at, and then that frees you up to do the things you are good at. I failed my elementary maths. But what mattered was that I created something that people wanted, and then I could have somebody else who could add up the numbers at the end of the year and see whether more money was coming in than going out. If you create something that people want, it's quite likely that more money will come in than goes out.
The fourth P, and that is people. Now, people are probably the most important part of any organization or any business. Without people, we have no processes. So it is people that run the processes, that generate the revenues, that give us the profit that the owners of the business are looking for. So it means that we have to select our people, we have to train our people, we have to empower our people, and then hold them accountable. Now, if we don't have the right people in our organization, in our business, then everything else gets affected. It affects our relationship with our customers, it affects our ability to deliver service, and ultimately the bottom line is affected, which is why large organizations invest a lot of money in hiring people, training them, empowering them, and monitoring them. And if you're a small business owner, you have to think in terms of how do you use the people that work for you in the most effective way. One of the issues that small business owners have is wanting to bring family members into the business, which is normal and natural. But often what we do is we promote people above their competence level. So you have mom and pop has a son or a daughter, and they want to bring that child into the business, and what happens is that they give them responsibility for which they are not prepared or trained, and they then give them authority over people in the organization for which they are not mature enough to handle, and ultimately that leads to a very bad situation. So I am going to say very little on the issue of people because it's one that we can deal with instinctively. We have to make sure that we recruit and hire and train the right people, and that we only promote on merit. Do not promote people in your organization based on affection or relationship or any other consideration. Promote them on the basis of merit. The fifth P. The fifth P is principles. Now, in this part of the presentation, I am going to be referring to Scripture because I believe that the basis for all principles for business come from Scripture. Principles are the things that we, the owners of the business, establish in the business as a means of guiding the way we conduct ourselves. For example, we may have principles of integrity and honesty and being able to satisfy the customer and meet the needs and so on. We have all of these unspoken rules sometimes, unwritten rules that we follow and that we expect our employees to follow because that's what leads to good business. Now, the reason for that is that we all wanted to be treated a certain way. Your customers expect that you will treat them honestly and with integrity. None of us like to be lied to. So we don't want to buy a pound of cheese and go home and wait and find out that it's only half a pound of cheese. We've paid for a certain quality. And there are some business owners who make that a practice. They think that because they are cutting corners and they are not giving the customer what he or she deserves, they make a little bit extra and they keep that for themselves. If you construct and develop your business that way without principles, then you're going to find soon enough that people will figure you out. People will realize that you are not a person of integrity and that you are not doing what you're supposed to do. And that's what Jesus said. Jesus said in Luke chapter 6, verse 31, that the way you treat people, as you would have people do to you, do so unto them. And that's the golden rule of business. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. So I believe that Scripture provides us with a lot of information on how we manage our businesses, the principles that we establish in our businesses to help guide us forward. Because principles drives the culture of the business. If your business lacks, if you, the business owner, lacks integrity, your business lacks integrity, your employees will realize that you lack integrity, and they are going to treat your customers with a lack of integrity and respect. So your principles drive your culture. And it's very important, therefore, whether you believe in God or not, that you establish good, sound, wholesome principles in your business as a platform for your success. If you do not do this, you are likely not to be very successful or as successful as you could be. So the fifth P is principles. Place that in the whole mix that you have so far, and you will realize that you have a recipe for success. Putting it together. Now, if you recall, at the very start, I told you that there were two types of businesses. There are owner-managed businesses, and there are structured businesses. And the way we put together, or we apply these other 5 Ps depend on which of the two we are. So in an owner-managed business, our key focus will be on product and price and processes. These are the 3 things, as well as principles. Principles, it goes without saying that whether we small, large, big, whatever, we all have to have consistently good, wholesome principles. So I'm going to leave that one aside for now. Let's talk about product, price, and processes. If you are a small or an emerging business, or you're thinking of starting a business, that's where you need to focus and get the things that we discussed previously right so that your business has a good chance of success. Small businesses need to focus first and foremost on their product, their pricing, and their processes. Get that under control, and then you have a reasonably good chance of growing from a small business into a large business. Large businesses have a slightly different focus. Now, large businesses have already proven that they have a good product, their pricing is reasonably good, their processes are okay. So the key focus of the business owner is transitioning from being someone who does or who manages to someone who leads. And that is where people come into effect. So the number one issue for growing businesses, large, expanding businesses, is their people. And the people have to be the right people at the top, competent people reporting to the owners who are able to manage the processes. So you need a competent marketing director. You need a competent chief financial officer. You need a competent CEO. All of these functions depend on getting the right people. But this really is most important for the owner themselves. What happens a lot of times to business owners is that they start small, they're managing everything, they have control over everything, but as the business gets bigger and bigger, they still want to manage and control and direct everything. They don't realize that for the business to succeed and grow, they need to step out of the role of being the owner-manager to being the owner-leader. So your function as your business grows is less of direct hands-on management to now shaping and guiding the executives who are running your organization for you. You need to transfer power from yourself and authority from yourself to your management team and lead them successfully. So the transition is very difficult for people who like to hold on to things. Sometimes business owners just don't know when it is time to let go and let someone else take responsibility, and your job then becomes to lead and manage and set the right example. So for the small business owner, putting it all together means that you deal with product pricing and processes. For the expanding business owner, your first priority is your people and your leadership of your people. And you have to step up to the plate now, remove yourself from the day-to-day operations, and function as someone who's conducting an orchestra. Your job now becomes to conduct the orchestra and help your management team and your leadership team do what they're supposed to do, empower them, and then release them to be successful. So there you have it, the 6 P's of business success. I hope that this video has helped you in some way. I hope it has given you ideas on how to manage your business successfully. If it has, I would love to hear from you. You can drop me a line, you can send me an email, or you can look me up on Facebook. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share this with you. And again, if you have issues and you have any further questions, please feel free to get in contact with me. I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much for viewing.